Department of Justice to move forward with the weaponization fund, they could potentially say that, I suppose, that we breached by not moving forward. They haven't done that, and I'm not aware that they're planning on doing that. Like I said, Senator, and Senator Durbin talked about this, but I've talked extensively with you and other colleagues about potentially codifying so there's no weaponization fund, which is certainly something that could be done. And I wasn't meaning to insult this body, but just that in response to questions from senators about whether that could be done, we very much are okay with that.
But just to be clear, the President of the United States, who is a plaintiff in this lawsuit, has not agreed in writing to delete the weaponization fund, and there's no guarantee that he or one of the other plaintiffs might raise that issue by way of a lawsuit and a breach of contract lawsuit in the future.
Well, Senator, the plaintiffs have no power over the fund. The fund was administered.
You just heard Attorney General nominee Todd Blanche say he didn't even hear the question. That's because Senator John Cornyn, a Republican from Trump's own party, was reading directly from a legal settlement most Americans have never seen. But hold on, this is only the tip of a much bigger problem. Blanche had just told the committee the $1.8 billion anti-weaponization fund was dead, moot, finished. Cornyn wasn't buying it. No written agreement to kill it, no signature from President Trump himself. The contract's still standing, still enforceable. Is the Attorney General's own party now his toughest critic? Stay tuned, because what Cornyn uncovers next will leave you speechless.
Including President Biden and President Trump.
Well, I can tell you he may have had the authority to do it, but I think someone should have grabbed him by the arm and said, stop. You can't release all of those rioters. Some of them actually physically assaulted policemen in the Capitol. Some of them were guilty of crimes, serious crimes before that day. And for the president to give a blanket pardon to these individuals is something that I don't think you can explain to the American people. You certainly can't explain it to the policemen who almost lost their lives because of these attackers. I yield, Mr. Chairman.
Before I go to Senator Cornyn, I'd like to enter into the record for supporting Mr. Blanche's nomination from former Attorney General John Ashcroft, and this is a quote from the letter. This rule of law is the best friend of liberty. To safeguard this core value, America needs an Attorney General exclusively devoted to the rule of law and will honor his oath to the Constitution. Todd Blanche is the right person for that responsibility. His record and credentials undergird my wholehearted support for his nomination. Without objection, that'll be entered into the record. Senator Cornyn.
Good morning, Mr. Blanche. Congratulations on your nomination. There's a lot to admire about your record of service to our country, and I respect the fact that you want to continue that service as the Attorney General. As I told you in my office, I think the Attorney General has the hardest job in Washington, D.C., because you are at the same...
To be fair, we still don't have confirmation that Blanche personally advised the president against creating this fund before it was ever announced. But here's the pattern. This isn't the only deal out of Blanche's Justice Department facing scrutiny over money. Weeks earlier, a separate hearing forced Blanche to defend the department's settlement with Ticketmaster, a case critics say let a monopoly walk away too easily. Nothing has been signed to kill this fund for good, and 3 Republicans on this committee are still undecided about confirming Blanche at all. Republican leadership wants him confirmed before the Senate leaves for its August recess. That clock is ticking.
In Washington, D.C., because you are at the same time a member of the president's cabinet, subject to dismissal whenever the president wants for any reason or no reason at all. But then you also have a duty as the chief law enforcement officer of the United States. And I think it's a very, very difficult balance. And I want to ask you a little bit about that, particularly in connection with the settlement of the tax case. There's so much that's unusual about this. First of all, the fact that the tax returns were leaked by a IRS contractor, Charles Littlejohn, who was appropriately convicted of a crime for doing that. President Trump and his family were definitely victims of a crime there. But it happened back in 2020, and the lawsuit wasn't brought until 2026. So with the 2-year statute of limitations, it seems to me that that was something I know that was the subject of pleading in the complaint and attempt to avoid the 2-year statute of limitations, but that struck me as unusual. But let's talk a little bit about the settlement agreement and the release. First of all, I believe you have said that the weaponization fund is a moot issue. Is that your position?
Yes, it is a moot issue, meaning there is no weaponization fund. The weaponization fund is dead. It's not moving forward.
Well, I would refer you to the settlement agreement. Do you happen to have a copy of that in front of you?
I do not.
Okay,
Senator.
well, you probably know what's in it.
I'm familiar with it, yes.
I'm sure you are. On page 4, this settlement agreement may be modified only upon the written agreement of the parties. Has there been a written agreement of the parties to modify the settlement fund?
No, the settlement fund's just not moving forward. There's no modification. It's just, it never started. No money went from the Treasury to any other account. There's no commissioners. It's not moving forward.
Well, so the settlement agreement remains as it was originally, but I hear what you're saying. Is the settlement agreement enforceable as a contract by the parties?
Well, yes, it's an enforceable document. So I suppose if President Trump's counsel sought to enforce it, that they potentially could.
Including the weaponization fund?
Well, they could try to enforce the contract. They can't force the Department of Justice to move forward with the weaponization fund. They could potentially say that
Cornyn isn't some outside critic. He's a senior Republican on the Senate Judiciary Committee representing Texas. And with Senator Lindsey Graham's sudden death, Republicans on this committee now have 0 votes to spare to confirm Blanche. Think about what it takes for a sitting president's own party to publicly doubt his signature settlement in the middle of a confirmation hearing on live television. This isn't a Democrat trying to score points. This is the majority party questioning its own nominee on the record under oath. Now watch what happens when Cornyn presses on whether that fund is actually dead.
potentially say that I suppose that we breached by not moving forward. They haven't done that, and I'm not aware that they're planning on doing that. Like I said, Senator, and Senator Durbin talked about this, but I've talked extensively with you and other colleagues about potentially codifying so there's no weaponization fund, which is certainly something that could be done. And I wasn't meaning to insult this body, but just that in response to questions from senators about whether that could be done, we very much are okay with that.
But just to be clear, the President of the United States, who is a plaintiff in this lawsuit, has not agreed in writing to delete the weaponization fund, and there's no guarantee that he or one of the other plaintiffs might raise that issue by way of a lawsuit, and a breach of contract lawsuit in the future.
Well, Senator, the plaintiffs have no power over the fund. The fund was administered solely by the 5 commissioners and through the Department of Justice. So no, they don't have any power with respect to the fund at all. I suppose they could bring a lawsuit and then we would litigate it. But even if we were litigating it, there's no fund. So the results of such litigation, whatever it would be, wouldn't be a revival of the fund.
I want to ask you about the release, and I know I'm guilty of what a lot of lawyers are guilty of in having a chart you can't read, but I know you're familiar with this document, which is the release that you signed on May the 19th, 2026. First of all, does this purport to release parties or people who were not parties to the lawsuit?
No, Senator.
Well, it says here that
That wasn't a slip of the tongue. Blanche just told a Republican senator he didn't hear the question, moments after that senator read directly from the settlement's own legal text. And when Cornyn pressed on whether Blanche personally discussed killing the fund with the president, the answer was no. Not once until after the decision was already made. Step back and look at the full picture. This is a Republican-controlled committee questioning a Republican president's own nominee over a fund nobody can quite explain who controls, who benefits, or when it might quietly come back. So we'll ask you directly. Do you believe an Attorney General should be confirmed while a $1.8 billion settlement fund sits unresolved, unsigned, and still legally enforceable? Drop your take in the comments. Hit subscribe if you want us tracking what happens when this nomination reaches the Senate floor. Because this story is far from over.